The words came out of my father's mouth so calmly that at first I thought I had misheard him. "You're homeless now." He stood in the doorway of the house I had grown up in, his hand still resting on the frame as if he had already decided the conversation was over. Behind him, the living room lights glowed warmly. The same couch, the same bookshelf, the same family photos hung on the wall. Everything looked exactly the same, except suddenly, I wasn't allowed inside anymore. "What do you mean I'm homeless?" I asked quietly. My father didn't hesitate. "You can't stay here anymore." The evening air was cold, and the small suitcase beside my feet suddenly felt much heavier. Just an hour earlier, I had arrived at the house thinking we were going to talk. Instead, I was standing on the front steps while my father calmly explained that I no longer had a home. "You made your choices," he continued, "and now you need to live with them." My hands tightened around the handle of the suitcase. I didn't do anything wrong. My father shook his head slowly. "You refused to follow the plan for this family." The plan. I had heard that word my entire life. My father believed every step of our future should be carefully decided. The career, the business, the direction of our lives. And recently, I had made one decision he didn't like. I chose to leave the family company and start my own work. To him, that meant betrayal. "You're overreacting," I said. But my father simply stepped back from the doorway. "I'm being very clear." He pointed toward the driveway. "You need to leave." The door closed behind him with a quiet click. Just like that. I stood there in silence for a moment, staring at the house where I had lived for more than 20 years. The porch light above me flickered softly. A car passed slowly down the street, and for the first time in my life, I realized something strange. My father believed he had taken everything from me. My home, my place in the family, my future. But there was something he didn't know. Something important. Because exactly 10 minutes earlier, before I had even knocked on that door, I had received a phone call. A phone call that was about to change everything. 10 minutes before I stood on that porch, I had been sitting in my car at the end of a street. I had parked there for a moment to prepare myself for the conversation with my father. I already knew it wasn't going to be easy. We hadn't spoken properly in weeks. Ever since I told him I was leaving the family company. The phone rang just as I was about to step out of the car. I almost ignored it, but something made me answer. "Hello." A calm voice spoke on the other end. "Good evening. Am I speaking with Zunri?" "Yes." "My name is Shane. I'm calling regarding a legal matter connected to your grandfather's estate." That immediately caught my attention. "My grandfather?" "Yes." My grandfather had passed away 2 years earlier. He had been the quiet one in the family, the only person who never tried to control my choices. "What about his estate?" I asked. Shane paused for a moment. "There are documents that were finalized today. According to the instructions in your grandfather's trust, you were supposed to be notified immediately." I leaned back in the driver's seat. Notified about what? About ownership. I frowned slightly. Ownership of what? The company. For a moment, I didn't understand. "What company?" "The family company your father currently manages." My hand tightened around the phone. "That company belongs to my father."
No, Sunny replied calmly.
"He manages it." There was a difference. "And according to the trust," he continued, "the legal ownership transfers today." The air in the car suddenly felt very still. "Transfers to who?" I asked. Shane didn't hesitate.
"To you."
I stared through the windshield, trying to process what I had just heard. My grandfather left the company to me? Yes. But my father has been running it for years. That was part of the agreement, Shane explained. Your father was responsible for managing the company until the final transfer date. And that date is today. Everything suddenly made sense. My grandfather had always watched quietly as my father controlled every decision. Maybe he had seen something long before I did. "What happens now?" I asked. "Legally," Shane said, You are now the owner of the company. I looked toward the house at the end of the street, the same house where my father believed he had all the power. Are you still there? Shane asked. Yes. I'm on my way to deliver the documents personally. I glanced at the time on the dashboard clock. How long will it take you? About 10 minutes. 10 minutes. I thanked him and ended the call. Then I stepped out of the car and walked toward the front door. That was the moment my father told me I was homeless. Now, standing outside with the suitcase at my feet, I checked my watch. 10 minutes had almost passed. Right on time, headlights turned the corner at the end of the street. A black car slowly pulled into the driveway behind me. The door opened. A man in a dark suit stepped out, holding a leather folder in his hand. He looked at the house, then at me. Zunri, he asked. Yes. He nodded once. I'm Shane. Behind us, the front door of the house suddenly opened again. My father stepped outside, clearly confused by the unexpected arrival. Who is this? He demanded. Shane turned calmly toward him. I'm here regarding the legal transfer of ownership. My father frowned. Ownership of what? Shane opened the folder, and the answer he was about to hear was something he never expected. The driveway had gone completely quiet. My father stood in the doorway, looking from me to the man beside the car. Ownership of what? He repeated. Shane stepped forward calmly and opened the leather folder in his hands. The family company. My father let out a short laugh. That's ridiculous. He folded his arms. I run that company. Yes, Shane replied politely. You manage it. My father's expression tightened. That's the same thing. Not legally. Shane pulled a document from the folder and held it out. This is the trust agreement created by your father. My grandfather, the only person in the family who had ever encouraged me to think for myself. My father took the paper impatiently. He scanned the first few lines quickly, then slower, then again. The confidence in his face slowly disappeared. That's impossible, he said quietly. Shane remained calm. For years, the agreement allowed you to manage the company. My father looked up, but the ownership was always scheduled to transfer. To whom? My father asked. Shane turned slightly. His gaze landed on me.
To her.
For a moment, no one spoke. The night air felt strangely still. My father looked from the document to me and back again. You're saying she owns the company? Yes. My father shook his head. She left the business. Shane nodded. And now she owns it. The silence stretched across the driveway. My suitcase still sat on the porch where my father had told me I no longer belonged. My father slowly lowered the paper.
His voice had changed.
You can't run that company. I picked up the suitcase and stepped down from the porch. I don't need to run it alone. The porch light flickered above us. My father stared at me, still trying to understand what had just happened. Only minutes earlier, he had been certain he had complete control. And now the truth had arrived in a leather folder. You are going to make me homeless, I said calmly. My father didn't answer, but he knew I was right. Shane closed the folder. The legal transfer became official this afternoon, he explained. The company now belongs to Zunri. My father looked at the house behind him, then back at me. For the first time in my life, he had nothing to say, because the situation had changed in a way he never expected. He had tried to remove me from the family's future, but the future had already chosen me. I picked up my suitcase again and walked toward the car. Shane opened the passenger door for me. Before getting in, I turned back toward the house one last time. You said I was homeless, I said quietly. Then I looked at the document Shane still held in his hands. But it turns out, I gave a small smile. I own the company that built this house. The door closed gently. The car pulled away from the driveway. And behind us, my father stood under the porch light, realizing something important. He had tried to take everything from me. But 10 minutes earlier, everything had already changed.